in terms of something expanding that's going to cause Earthlings to face risks on top of all the other ways that we expose ourselves to harms that we could prevent as the society is constructed, it's the wealthy. Here's a map or a chart of Wall Street Journal. America's 19 richest households saw a $1 trillion increase in wealth last year, a rise that exceeds the size of Switzerland's entire economy. 19 households, 19 vampire families gained the size of Switzerland entire economy. You can see this sharp spike on this chart. This chart goes back to 1920, and we see a downward trend of wealth. Wealth of the top 0.00001% in the U.S. as a share of the total U.S. household wealth. The best we could hope for in our society, where we are all trapped, is that this line goes down. That the percentage that these money addict, they're actually addicted to your stress, by the way. Stress is how they titrate leverage. Leverage is how they compel obedience. Obedience is how they get you to work and to consume. They're addicted to your stress. Okay? Don't ever forget that. Tell them I said so. But we want to see this line go downwards. Look right here. Right after 1980. The Powell memo comes out somewhere, in the early 70s that was. The progressive era of the 40s was an incredibly threatening time for the capitalist class, for the ruling class. World War II certainly shook up the world quite a bit in terms of the economics that followed from it globally. The tax rates in the 50s were over 90% at the top marginal bracket. And the wealth of these ghouls, the 0.0000001% of the U.S. household was going down up until 1980. Then it just started climbing up. Policy changes in the 80s. Stock buybacks became legal again. All sorts of deregulation. Oh, Ronald Reagan, this Alzheimer's addled former Hollywood movie actor, another fucking pitchman, a salesman. Had this look of him, captured America's need for the stagnation that they had been experiencing in the 70s. And it's, that root code of the deep core race supremacy that was, always in the DNA of American culture, and the income share of the wealthy. Not only does it becomes far more chaotic, up and down some spikes. It took a big drop here around 2000, 1999. I think we can just presume that this spike itself was the dot-com bubble of the late 90s. And then because the overall trend is just an exponential curve straight up from 1981 or 2 onwards. 1.81% growth rate in 2021 of this amount. And this is the expansion that's going to kill us. That's going to keep us from being a multi-planetary species. This is going to prevent us from being a single-planetary species. Elon, dumbass. Okay? So that's what we have to get rid of. We have to assert control. The workers of the planet need to take over as a matter of planetary defense. Here's the Wall Street Journal article. I don't have a subscription, so we're not going to read it. $1 trillion of wealth was created for the 19 richest U.S. households last year. The richest of the rich in America control record slice with all the poverty, the homelessness, the struggles people have, the stress people have. Eggs are a luxury good. You have to ask your egg lord if you can have an omelet. An omelet is like a luxury item now. I haven't had an egg in well over a year. I think I did have a little bit of egg in a breakfast burrito. But you like the amount of deprivation that we're all experiencing and the stress that we're experiencing is directly connected to exactly what we're looking at. Here's an article from, I got to the end there. I spoiled it. Al Jazeera, May 7th, 2025. 2/3 of global warming caused by the world's richest 10% study finds. Study authors argue progressive taxes on wealth and carbon-intensive investments could provide a solution. The wealthiest 10% of the world's people are responsible for 2/3 of the global warming since 1990, according to researchers. The way in which the rich consume and invest has substantially increased the risk of heat waves and droughts, wrote the researchers of a study published on Wednesday in the monthly peer-reviewed scientific journal Nature Climate Change. This is the first study to quantify the impact of concentrated private wealth on extreme climate events. We link the carbon footprints of the wealthiest individuals directly to real-world climate impacts, lead author Sarah Schoengart, a scientist at the Public University of ETH Zurich, told the AFP news agency. It is a shift from carbon accounting toward climate accountability. I had to switch over to my German. Compared with the global average, for example, the richest 1% contributed 26 times more to once-a-century heat waves and 17 times more to droughts in the Amazon, according to the study. This is what I mean when I was saying earlier that we're at an entropic limit. It's not infinite. We've reached the bubble. We've reached the wall of the bubble. It's a global system. Consumption over there, construction of billionaire habitats for the selfish. Just think of it as like building as a zoo for vampires. But they get to live in the best places. The way they fly around. Taylor Swift takes a fucking private jet from her bedroom to her kitchen to get a glass of water. The waste that goes into it. The apparatus that exists underneath them. You know, the service. They all live on these cushions of service of scared, hangers on and professionals that follow them around, guards and lawyers and accountants and assistants and all that other shit. Emissions from the wealthiest 10% in China and the United States, which together account for nearly half of global carbon pollution, each led to a 2 to 3-fold rise in heat extremes. Quote, if everyone had emitted like the bottom 50% of the global population, the world would have seen minimal additional warming since 1990, co-author Carl Friedrich Schlussenzer said. Addressing this imbalance is crucial for fair and effective climate action. Burning fossil fuels and deforestation have heated Earth's average surface by 1.3 degrees Celsius, 2.3 degrees Fahrenheit, mostly during the past 30 years. That's a blip on the geographic timescale. Wealthy emitters play a major role in driving climate extremes. That is a subhead. I guess I'll just read the whole thing because there's an ending that I want to get to. Schoengart and her colleagues combined economic data and climate simulations to trace emissions from different global income groups and assess their impact on specific types of climate-enhanced extreme weather. The researchers also emphasized the role of emissions embedded in financial investment rather than just lifestyle and personal consumption. This is really interesting. The impact of this consumption and investment is particularly severe in tropical regions such as the Amazon, Southeast Asia, and Southern Africa, all areas of the world that have historically contributed the least to global emissions, but have been disproportionately impacted by extreme weather. Someone else is paying the price for this luxury. Our study shows, this is quoted, our study shows that extreme climate impacts are not just the result of abstract global emissions. Instead, we can directly link them to our lifestyle and investment choices, which in turn are linked to wealth. Schoengart said, I've goofed up my tone on that one. Schoengart said, more from Schoengart. We found that wealthy emitters play a major role in driving climate extremes, which provides strong support for climate policies that target the reduction of their emissions. The authors argued that targeting the financial activities and investment portfolios of high-income individuals could lead to significant climate gains. Quote, climate action that doesn't address the outsized responsibilities of the wealthiest members of society risk missing one of the most powerful levers we have to reduce future harm. Schlusner said. This concept of responsibility from wealthy, this is me, Hank, talking now. That's one of those things that's always on my head here, at least the last few months, about like what ownership grants the wealthy is everything except responsibility, everything but it. They don't have any responsibility to the society that they live in. It's so fucked, man. Owners of capital, he noted, could be held accountable for climate impacts through progressive taxes on wealth and carbon-intensive investments, thus providing much-needed support for adaptation and damage in vulnerable countries. I mean, it is baked in. We do have to deal with it. Okay, we're near the end. Earlier research has shown that taxing asset-related emissions is more equitable than broad carbon taxes, which tend to burden those with lower incomes. Recent initiatives to increase taxes on the super-rich and multinationals have mostly stalled, especially since U.S. President Donald Trump's return to power in January, of course. Not that Biden was heading down that road much either. So I think Sanders had proposed a wealth tax, and then also Elizabeth Warren did as well. His was more aggressive than hers, but nothing would change about their lives if they had to pay taxes and were reduced in wealth. Nothing. They would have less access to your stress. That's about it. You know, we still have to go further, but in 2021, nearly 140 countries agreed to work towards a global corporate tax for multinational companies, with nearly half endorsing a minimum rate of 15%, but those talks have stalled as well. According to the anti-poverty NGO Oxfam, the richest 1% have accumulated $42 trillion in new wealth over the past decade. And think about that. 10 years ago, they had 42 trillion less, but they had trillions. They had it all already. What kind of madness are we in where the system floods a flooded plain with more and more and more and more? Why do we serve them so much? What if your life's interest, and that all that really means for most of us, is just safety and dignity, maybe more time to enjoy being alive and have connections with people, develop yourself, sleep and rest, be a weirdo, be lazy, fuck off for a little while, not consume so much. I don't think we all need to consume. What if the government prioritized that? Instead, we prioritize this? It's so bizarre to me. Final sentence. It says the richest 1% have more wealth than the lowest 95% combined. What the fuck are we doing? What kind of stupid world is this? And fools like Elon Musk they're going to get another giant pile. They're going to get sprayed in the face by the fire hose of cash from the government. And you're supposed to feel ashamed because you think you should be able to see a fucking doctor. Maybe your food support. I don't think anybody should ever pay for food. Not that that's exactly the solution to everything, but the world I would build, people would have awesome restaurants. There'd be like collective cafeterias. There'd be so much help. There'd be so much awesome food. Everybody would be fed. Local gardening, local growing, all sorts of cool stuff. But like, instead, the system is precisely designed to pump money into these people's pockets.